Coming up here on today's San Francisco 49ers report, we're going to preview this Week 4 matchup between the San Francisco 49ers and the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Niners 3-0, the Jags 2-1. This game taking place at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara here in Week 4, Sunday, September 28th. 1:05 p.m. Eastern is the kickoff. The over-under for this game at 47, so a little bit higher than the Niners' previous 3 matchup to start the year because those games have been very defensive-oriented, and the Niners, even without Nick Bosa, 3-point favorites in this game. We have the best preview that you'll catch here on YouTube coming your way, but I do want to hear from you. It's prediction time. Who you got? Let me know down in the comment section here. Type JAC for Jacksonville, SF for San Francisco. And with that, let's get this preview underway. We're off and running. Welcome into the show. This is the 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr., and as always, no matter where you are or how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. And obviously for the 49ers moving forward, we got that breaking news on Monday. They will be without Nick Bosa. And the big question for this 49ers defense, can they survive without one of the top pass rushers in the game? Since coming into the league in 2019 when he was the second overall pick out of Ohio State, he is number 4 in sacks across the NFL, number 1 in pressures, and he wreaks havoc on the opposition week in and week out. And so without Nick Bosa and this Niners team being Bosa-less, how do they fare on defense for the rest of the 2025 campaign? Not going to be easy, and obviously that's a big storyline that we're going to discuss here in the preview and a big storyline that we're going to monitor for the rest of the season. And I tweeted this out on my X page at Chase_Senior. You really have to feel for Nick Bosa as he's lost a lot of time in his football career due to injuries, and there aren't many players across the NFL who take better care of their bodies than Bosa. That's why physically he's 101. He's an absolute physical specimen, and this guy was voted as a team captain by his teammates for a reason. His approach to the game is what you want from a superstar player to set the tone for the rest of the organization. He's highly respected, and he's a fantastic player. But the injury history has become a little bit concerning here. When he was a high school senior, had a partially torn right ACL in 2015. 2018, his final year at Ohio State, he had core muscle surgery. Still went number 2 overall in the NFL draft. In 2020, year 2 in the NFL, early in the year, he tore his left ACL. 2024, missed a couple of games last season because of a groin injury, and according to all accounts, it was actually a lot worse than what Bosa led it on to be. And here this year, year 7 in the NFL, he has a torn right ACL. So to tally that up, that is 2 ACL surgeries on his right knee and then an ACL tear in his left knee. The one in 2020 was ugly. This one is said to be a clean tear. But when can we expect Bosa to come back? And what type of player will he be once he does come back? Dr. Nirav Pandya, who's a doctor in the Bay Area, said this on, I believe, 95.7 The Game. The hard thing when you go through a second ACL surgery is that the knee has already been operated on. There's going to be a lot of wear and tear in that knee. There potentially could be some degeneration over time. And we think of a first-time ACL, it's usually 9 months. The second time can sometimes be up to a year just getting your strength and mobility back. Now, Bosa's in great shape. He's in his late 20s. Hopefully he can come back and be close to the Nick Bosa that we saw to start 2025 and the Bosa that we've seen in recent years. I mean, he was the Defensive Player of the Year in 2022, and he's been a consecutive Pro Bowler the last several years, but you have to get that second ACL surgery in that same knee, and maybe that timeline a little bit longer, unfortunately. Obviously, we'll see. Now, let me get to this. Here's how the 49ers can survive without Nick Bosa, who's one of the top overall players and certainly defensive players in football. Robert Saleh can get creative, more aggressive with blitzing more. And of course, with blitzing, you have to pick and choose your spots. And sometimes it depends down in distance, situation, time in the game, and the quarterback that you're going up against. You can also run some more twists, stunts, and gains to try to exploit that opposing offensive line and create matchups where you can generate pressure on the quarterback. When you do blitz, though, and in general without Nick Bosa, the coverage on the back end has to hold up. We could also see things like we've seen the last 2 weeks where Jair Brown as the hybrid nickel, him in that role, it's starting to increase a little bit. And the existing players already on this Niners team have to step up. Now, when Robert Saleh was the defensive coordinator in 2020, final season with the Niners before he got that head coaching job with the Jets, he had to deal with something similar, right? Nick Bosa out with an ACL injury. That year, the 49ers fared very well in DVOA. They were 8th in total DVOA without Nick Bosa for much of the year. EPA per dropback, they were number 9. And EPA per rush, number 5. So that goes to show you that San Francisco can keep their heads above water without Bosa. Gonna be hard. And you also think back to that year, Kerry Hyder had 8.5 sacks for this ball club. And so you're going to have to rely on the other players playing better and bringing it week in and week out. Kyle Shanahan even said that yesterday. There's no replacing a player like Nick Bosa, but the current and existing players on this Niners team just need to up their games a little bit. Now, before we continue to move forward with our Niners-Jags preview, a reminder to subscribe to the channel for elite Niners coverage every single day right here on the program. But also, we go live for every single Niners game. So we're doing another watch party on Sunday. I hope to see you there. The people call it. The real ones say it's the best place to experience a Niners game day outside of being at the actual game. Lock us in, hit that sub button, and with this video, faithful, show up, show out. Can we get to 172,000 subscribers? Working off of Bosa's injury, these are other injuries coming out of that win over the Arizona Cardinals. Rookie defensive tackle C.J. West, who nearly brought down Kyler Murray for that safety, has to get thumb surgery. He's getting that surgery on Tuesday. He could play on Sunday, though, with a cast. Quarterback Mac Jones re-injured that knee that bothered him in the preseason. He's day-to-day with that knee. Defensive lineman Mykel Williams left the game early with that wrist injury, then came back and played a whale of a game. He, too, is day-to-day. Second-year corner Renardo Green. He's had a good year, opposite of Diamador Lenore, dealing with a neck. He, too, day-to-day. And then wide receiver Jawan Jennings, who did not play against Arizona, day-to-day with ankle and shoulder injuries. There's also another injury that is looming large for San Francisco. The quarterback spot, Brock Purdy. Mac Jones played as well as he could have, filling in for Purdy the last 2 weeks. And when you go 2-0 with the backup, you'll take that all the time, right? And Kyle Shanahan, he deserves credit for putting Mac Jones in a position to succeed. This is why Shanahan is an elite coach, because he had Mac ready to play. And we saw some big boy stuff from Mac, right? The end of the half drive against the Saints, how he managed the end of the game against the Saints, and the Niners were able to hold on. Then the game-winning drive on Sunday against a really good Cardinals defense. But this Niners team is better, and much better, when Brock Purdy is back there. And Brock Purdy's ability to extend plays, improvise, create, make plays happen with his feet and his legs makes this Niners offense more difficult to defend and taxes the defense more. That is something that Mac Jones can't do. And so the Niners will manage Brock Purdy's turf toe injury all throughout the week. He's kind of looked at as day-to-day, but the expectation is that Purdy should be able to play in this game against Jacksonville. He returned to practice last week. Of note, recording this show on Tuesday afternoon, September 23rd. There's also this. Jamarcus Robinson is a free agent acquisition from the offseason that I think has fallen under the radar. We saw in the preseason, he's a really good player. Last year with the Los Angeles Rams, he averaged more than 16 yards per catch. He's a big body. He was really utilized in the red zone by Sean McVay. He's a legitimate wideout. He can return and is eligible to come back from his suspension from that DUI arrest last November, and so that adds to this Niners receiving core. I'd like to see him back in the mix. Ricky Pearsall, he's been one of the top wide receivers to start the season. I really like what I've seen from Kendrick Bourne. You get Jawan Jennings and Demarcus Robinson back in the fold, that's a pretty good top 4 for Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan. The Jaguars, on the other hand, a pretty healthy team heading into week 4. We're going to monitor the status of offensive tackle Wyatt Milam. He has a knee injury. He's questionable. And then wide receiver Diami Brown, questionable with a shoulder. When I scout Jacksonville, the Liam Cohen era is underway. Used to be the offensive coordinator and play caller for the Bucs. Baker Mayfield was tremendous last year, led the NFL in touchdowns thrown, and threw for 4,500 yards. Everybody talks about how bad Will Levis is at the NFL level, and last year he was the worst starter in the league. When he was at Kentucky, he was looked at as a first-round pick for a moment because of Liam Cohen. So this is a very bright offensive mind who's trying to get Trevor Lawrence back on track, and I'd say that Lawrence has been pretty average to start the year, but this Jags offense has made some timely plays late in games, and Lawrence has played better than he did the last couple of years under Doug Peterson. This Jags defense, it's a good unit. They are number 2 in the NFL in EPA per play. Travis Etienne, he was a star at Clemson. His NFL career, a little bit slow to get started because everybody thought that he was going to be a star. This year, he's been a star. He's been balling. Brian Thomas had a great rookie year. His sophomore campaign, it's not been good, and he's seemingly been unhappy with Jacksonville. Hasn't quite hit his stride with Trevor Lawrence, but he's one of the top wide receivers in the game when he's playing well. So he's a dog. Niners have to be cognizant of that. Travis Hunter really hasn't done much to start the year. He's been a little bit of a disappointment. It's almost like playing two ways at the NFL level is hard. And then on defense for Jacksonville, a big reason why that defensive unit is number 2 in EPA per play, Trayvon Walker is a stud as a pass rusher and stopping the run. He is what we hope Mykel Williams will be. The Jags so far, a 2-1 record to begin the 2025 campaign. Week 1 to kick off the year, 26-10 win over the Panthers at home. Then they went on the road and lost to the Bengals 31-27. That game was pretty wild. Joe Burrow got hurt early. Jake Browning threw a couple of picks, yet the Bengals still won that game late with some good late-game execution. And then last week against a desperate Texans team that was looking to avoid going 0-3, Jacksonville able to beat Houston 17-10. Of course, the 49ers, a bunch of close one-score games that they've been able to close out, come through in the clutch, and win. 17-13 win week 1 on the road against the Seahawks. Quality dub right there. Seahawks look legit. 26-21 win on the road against the Saints in week 2 with Mac Jones. And then Mac Jones, 2-0, the second win, 16-15 win the other day against the Cardinals. The game-winning drive was a thing of beauty. How the Jags stack up on both sides of the pill. Offensively first, points per game, 23.3. That ranks 14th, middle of the pack in the NFL. They are picking up a lot of yards. 8th there at 356.3. Yards per play, not bad, 5.4. You'll take it. That ranks number 13. On third downs, 37.5% conversion rate. That's 24th. And in the red zone, Liam Cohen would like to see them get better. They're 19th at 50%. But on defense, we're looking at another top 10 unit, like Seattle's been, like Arizona has been. Number 5 scoring defense, 17 points per game surrendered for Jacksonville. 10th in yards per game, 8th in yards per play. Third down rate, a little bit of a struggle getting off the field at 40.9%, but in the red zone, making up for it there. Number 11 red zone defense, giving up touchdowns at just 50% of the clip. How the Niners stack up on offense and defense. 23rd in points per game. A lot of their games have been low scoring thus far, and they've been won at the end by the defense, and then obviously the offense doing just enough late, especially against Arizona. 19.7 points per game. With Kyle Shanahan, you want to see that number go up, but they've also played with 2 different quarterbacks in 3 weeks. They are 7th in yards per game at 361, so they are moving it. Yards per play, again, not a bad place to be when it's at 5.4, 5.5. They are good on third downs. Number 9 there at 43.5%. The red zone offense was an issue last year. It's been an issue to start this year. Hopefully with the return of Brock Purdy, they can climb up the leaderboard there. 45.4%, that's 24th. How about Robert Saleh's defense, though? Top 10 in all of these following categories. Points per game, number 3, 16.3. Yards per game, number 4, 265.7. Yards per play, number 5, 4.4. Third down conversion rate, 33.3%, number 7. They're getting off the field. That's important. And then in the red zone, they are 15th at 55.5%. Now we're only starting to take flight. for our Niners-Jags preview. Coming up next on the other side, my keys to the game and how San Francisco can beat the Jaguars to stay unbeaten. But let's get to our sponsor for today's show, our friends at PrizePicks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app in the game. Right now, you can get $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup if you go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use the code CLNS. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on PrizePicks, where it's fantastic to be right. It's very simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. PrizePicks, the best way to get action on sports all across America. They put their users first, all withdrawals fast, safe, and secure. PrizePicks offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account. They offer injury reboots. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half, like George Kittle in week 1, Nick Bosa week 3, it won't count against you, and you won't get docked with a loss. PrizePicks, the best way to win cash this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Turn your takes into cash all season long on PrizePicks. Our selections for this week. The special in week 4, Jalen Hurts. All he has to do is throw for more than a half passing yard. Easy money there. Let's go with Christian McCaffrey, more than 42.5 receiving yards. He's top 15 in receiving yards among all players in the NFL so far to start this year. And then Travis Hunter. Does he finally get going catching the football? More than 35.5 receiving yards. New users, play $5, get $50 instantly in lineups. It's real money sports action made easy. Download the app today. Use the code CLNS. That's code CLNS. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. All right, we move forward here on the show. You're watching the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Senior. Coming up on the show, my keys to the game. If the 49ers do these following 5 things, they will beat the Jacksonville Jaguars here in week 4, and they will stay unbeaten and move to 4-0. Number 1, this is really going to be a big key for this week and the rest of the year. Can the Niners survive without Nick Bosa? You can do it in one game, like San Francisco was able to do against Arizona. But that's when teams don't game plan for the loss of Nick Bosa. Now that the Jags know that Bosa isn't lining up at defensive end on both sides, at defensive tackle, at both spots, they can game plan for how to exploit this Niners defense, knowing that Nick Bosa isn't going to be pressuring Trevor Lawrence, being able to collapse the pocket and wreak havoc on the game, because Nick Bosa is one of the most disruptive players in all of football. Now, the Niners DVOA rankings right now going into week 4, damn good on both sides of the ball. Offensively, 8th in DVOA. Defensively, 6th in DVOA. Special teams, you might be like, what? Oh no, we suck again. Special teams DVOA, ranking 28th in the NFL. A lot of that is weighted from a bad week 1 performance on special teams when Jake Moody missed 2 field goals. One off the left upright from 27, and then the other one was blocked. More so because of a blocking breakdown, a protection breakdown, compared to Moody and it being his fault, right? I think that the special teams unit the last 2 games has been better. It will continue to go up because special teams-wise, the Niners have been better noticeably the last 2 weeks of the season so far. If the offense and defense can stay here and kind of maintain this the rest of the way, you have to feel very good about the Niners' chances to make the playoffs and contend in an NFC that right now going into week 4, I think is wide open. And you look at this chart here. This is a good spot to be because you look at the other teams in the realm of where the Niners are, right? I think the Rams are one of the top teams in the conference. The Detroit Lions had a very impressive win over the Baltimore Ravens on Monday Night Football. You see the Ravens there. They're 1-2. They're better than what that record shows. The Buccaneers are really good inside the NFC. The Packers, the Jags, the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Colts are 3-0. And so for the Niners to be here with Washington and Seattle as well, that goes to show you that they're playing pretty well-rounded football right now. And they're much more complementary offense, defense, special teams-wise than they've been in recent memory. Here is my guide for how the Niners can survive without Nick Bosa. Obviously, easier said than done. Robert Saleh can blitz more from time to time, and of course, you have to pick and choose your spots. You can also run more twist stunts and games to just try to get creative with generating pressure on the quarterback. When you do blitz, and really just in general, without a player like Nick Bosa, who throughout the game is going to wreak havoc on the quarterback because that's what he does since coming into the league. He's 4th in sacks, number 1 in pressures if you include the playoffs. The coverage on the back end has to hold up. If you can't get pressure on the quarterback and you're bad on that back end, it's going to spell disaster. We could also see things like more of Jair Brown playing hybrid nickel. Robert Saleh getting creative with how he utilizes his personnel. And to start the year, he's been terrific at that. And then, of course, the existing players must step up. Maybe at some point, the Niners make a trade. I've talked about trade candidates here in the wake of the Nick Bosa injury here on the channel, but right now, they haven't made a trade. And so the players who are on this team do have to step up. And Bryce Huff, good sign, has been fantastic to start the year. I will say with Bryce Huff, it's a little bit different when you're Robin compared to Batman. He's been Robin on the opposite side of Nick Bosa. Now he's going to be the Batman, right? And he's going to be double-teamed more. But when you look at edge rusher, pass rush win rate, look at where Bryce Huff is at 24.6%. He's among some of the best pass rushers in the game, behind Will Anderson, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, Jonathan Cooper, Nick Bonito, Jared Verse, Trey Hendrickson. He's ahead of Danielle Hunter and Jonathan Grenard. And then the highest graded edge rushers, he also grades out very well. He's been highly disruptive. That quick get off is really just a game-changing skill that he possesses. He's number 5, behind Leatu Latu of the Colts, Myles Garrett, Aiden Hutchinson, and Micah Parsons. I mean, we're talking about Garrett, Hutchinson, Parsons being in the running here for Defensive Player of the Year. Latu, really good young player. Not going to quite put him in that category yet, but he's having a great start to the year and helping that Colts team get off to that 3-0 start. Bryce Huff at number 5. He's going to need to continue to play well. Without the services of Nick Bosa, Michael Williams going to have to step up. So too will Sam Okuwano and Yetur Gross-Matos. I would imagine Robert Beal gets elevated from the practice squad to the active game day roster in week 4. Can he finally do something? Key to the game number 2. This Jaguars offense starts, ends, and runs through Travis Etienne. When he was at Clemson, Chip knows, he went to Clemson. Right now, feeling down in the dumps a little bit because Dabo Swinney looking like a fraud. So too are the Clemson Tigers to start the year. But when Travis Etienne was at Clemson, dog, to start his career, hasn't quite lived up to those expectations and had been a little bit of a disappointment for Jacksonville. Injuries, inconsistent play. It's hard to find your groove when you're dealing with a couple of different coaches and offensive schemes. This year, though, Travis Etienne has been phenomenal. 46 carries, 270 yards, a touchdown, giving Jacksonville explosive plays, has a long of 71. Now, he hasn't been utilized as much as a pass catcher out of the backfield, but he's capable of doing that. But the Jags, because they still don't quite trust Trevor Lawrence all that much, they want to run the ball. They want to establish the run. That is priority number 1 for Jacksonville. Then you build the pass game off of that because Trevor Lawrence needs some assistance. He needs to get the play action going. But Etienne, really special player to start this year. And that Jags offense, led by Liam Cohen, new head coach and play caller, bringing in his new offensive system, has led to Etienne being fantastic. And they're really going to rely on him once again. Number 3. Up until this point of the year, Brian Thomas has not been good. He hasn't been able to duplicate what was a magical rookie year last year, but San Francisco can't let this be the game where Brian Thomas gets going. And I like what the Niners secondary has done to start the year. Deommodore Lenoir has played, once again, at a Pro Bowl, all-pro type of level. Continues to be one of the more underrated corners in the game. Bernardo Green has been pretty solid. Upton Stout in the slot has been really good. Had a game-winning play late on that pass breakup against Zay Jones late in the game on Sunday against Arizona. Marquis Siegel, Jason Pinnock. I like what they've done at the safety spot. Imagine how much better the Niners can be once Malik Mustafa comes back. This pass rush has been able to get home, but without Nick Bosa, if they can't get that pass rush humming and the back end has to hold up for a while, Brian Thomas could spring free. Travis Hunter, who's done nothing to start the year, could have an impactful game. And when I say that Thomas was special as a rookie, this is one of the best seasons that you can have as a receiver in your debut season in the NFL. 133 targets as a rookie, 87 catches, nearly 1,300 yards, and 10 touchdowns. But in 3 games to start this year, he's been unhappy for whatever reason with Jacksonville, and he only has 7 catches in 3 games for a $115. He is too good and too special at 6'4", 205 to be bottled up and not put up production. At some point, he's going to go off. Niners can't allow that to be this week. Key to the game number 4, and this obviously ties back to key to the game number 1 in surviving without Nick Bosa. The Niners have to pressure Trevor Lawrence. And Trevor Lawrence has had a big turnover problem throughout his career. This is throwing picks. This is also fumbling. And Trevor Lawrence, when you look at his throwing mechanics, this can be an issue for quarterbacks going from college to the pros. He has a long and loopy release. It takes him a long time to get rid of the football. And because of that, it can lead to a lot of fumbles when he's in the backfield and he's under siege. And this is something that Robert Saleh and Chris Kocurek really pound home. When you get to the quarterback, try to get that ball out. When you win the turnover margin in the NFL, you win about 80% of the games. And so I think this game is going to be close. And it could come down to a turnover, like a strip sack of Trevor Lawrence, a pick. Because if you start to pressure him and hit him, his eyes can kind of drift a little bit, and he can get a little bit hesitant in the pocket, and his feet can get a little bit skittish, and he's prone to turning the football over. In 2024, in only 10 games played, he threw 11 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. Not great. And in his career as a rookie, led the NFL with 17 picks. Year 2, that went down to 8. Year 3, up to 14. 2024, he threw 7 in only 10 games, though. And then last year, last year threw those 7 picks. And then this year, Trevor Lawrence has also put the ball in harm's way. He's turned it over a lot. So he's a big body, and he sees the field well when the pocket is clean. But when the pocket is not clean, that's when he can really struggle. He's thrown 4 picks and 4 touchdowns in 3 games to start the year. Key to the game number 5, I really like what I saw from Mac Jones the last 2 weeks as far as evenly distributing the football. And that was something that really stood out to me against New Orleans when Mac Jones was able to find 8 different receivers in that game. That's especially important because it makes you more difficult to defend while being injured at wide receiver and tight end. You know, you've been banged up at both of those positions, and so you're not 100%. You don't have your elite players there. But with Mac Jones playing point guard, getting rid of the ball, and being able to distribute the rock to so many different players, it almost has made up for the Niners not having special players like Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, last week Jawan Jennings. And then against Arizona, after he found 8 different receivers against New Orleans, 7 different players caught a pass against Arizona. And so I want to see Brock Purdy do a lot of the same things. And he's capable of doing that. I mean, Kyle Shanahan really trusts him. Kyle Shanahan loves him because Kyle Shanahan knows that Purdy gives this team something that Mac Jones gives this team at quarterback, being able to play point guard, get rid of the ball on time, accurately, in rhythm to your playmakers so that they can pick up yards after the catch. And the added element that Purdy gives you, the ability to create with his feet and his legs, which is an added weapon and component that Purdy gives this Niners offense that Mac Jones does not. Lastly, how the Jags stack up on both sides of the ball. On defense, they've been one of the top teams in the NFL, and they're number 2 in EPA per play. So defensively, 5th in points per game, 10th in yards per game, 8th in yards per play, 20th on third downs, 11th in the red zone. Offensively for Jacksonville, they've been middle of the pack for the most part, and I think Liam Cohen at times is able to make chicken salad out of chicken shit with Trevor Lawrence. 14th in points per game, 8th in yards per game, 13th in yards per play, 24th on third down rate, 19th in the red zone. For the 49ers, offensively, I think that with more stability and continuity at quarterback, you'll see points per game go up from number 23 among the 32 teams in the NFL. You like how they're moving the ball, 7th in yards per game, 14th yards per play. They've also gone against some really good defenses, Arizona and Seattle. 9th on third downs. That's good. Keep the chains moving. They have to get better in the red zone. 45.4%, that's 24th. But again, they've had to do that with 2 different quarterbacks. Defensively, I just can't say enough about what Robert Saleh's been able to do. Number 3 in points per game, number 4 in yards per game, 5th in yards per play, 7th on third downs, 15th in the red zone. So predict the score here. Jacksonville Jaguars, San Francisco 49ers, week 4, Levi Stadium. The Jags are a better coach team than they've been in recent years. And so because of that, I think they're able to stay close with the Niners. I do think this Niners offense gets going as far as finally scoring more than 30 points. I'm going to go Niners 32, Jags 25. Defense has to feel itself out a little bit without Nick Bosa. Then they end the game strong.